the crimson sun of Kepler-4, for to be cast long shadows across the sprawling Galactic Defense Academy as 17-year-old Maya Rodriguez stepped off the transport shuttle, her worn duffel bag slung over one shoulder. Around her, alien cadets from a dozen different species chatted in their native tongues, their forms ranging from crystalline, Vorthri, to towering, mantis-like Zeektheri. Another Deathworlder hissed a blue-scaled Aquilian cadet. Command must be desperate, I pretended not to hear, but her jaw tightened. She'd heard those whispers her entire life that humans were violent, unpredictable, barely evolved from their savage homeworld. Inside the orientation hall, Commandant Veltar, a six-armed Hesperidian with skin like polished obsidian, addressed the new recruits. You are here to become the galaxy's finest defenders. His voice resonated through universal translators. But many of you will not survive the training. His 4 yellow eyes swept across the assembled cadets before settling on Maya. Humans have a reputation for violence and emotional instability. We shall see if that reputation serves you here or destroys you. Several alien cadets chuckled, the sound like grinding metal. Maya's hands clenched into fists at her sides, but she kept her expression neutral. The Commandant's words stung, but they also ignited something fierce within her chest. The first week passed in a blur of academic classes, physical conditioning, and weapons training. Maya excelled at tactical analysis and close-quarters combat, but struggled with anti-gravity flight simulations that came naturally to species, evolved for three-dimensional movement. Her bunkmate, a soft-spoken Centaurian named Kira, with iridescent fur and large empathetic eyes, became her only friend. "Why do they hate us so much?" Maya asked one night, nursing bruises from training accidents that seemed to happen only to human cadets. "Fear," Kira whispered. "Your species conquered a death world and spread to the stars in mere centuries. What took us millennia, you accomplished in the blink of an eye. They fear what you might become." The next morning brought hand-to-hand combat training with Instructor Thakmer, a massive Kragian whose species resembled humanoid rhinos. His hide was scarred from countless battles, and his small red eyes held nothing but contempt for the human cadets. "Combat is about discipline and technique," Thakmer growled, his voice like grinding stone. "Not the wild flailing you Deathworlders are known for." When Thakmer called for sparring partners, Maya stepped forward. "Tile, spar with the human," volunteered Zexai, a tall, graceful Etherian, whose translucent skin glowed with bioluminescent patterns of amusement. The Etherian moved like water, but when he overextended on a high kick, Maya ducked under and swept his supporting leg. The alien crashed to the mat, his patterns flashing in surprise and embarrassment. The sparring sessions continued, and Maya found herself winning more often than losing. Her human adaptability allowed her to quickly learn and counter new fighting styles, while her endurance let her outlast opponents who tired more quickly. But success bred resentment. Equipment mysteriously malfunctioned during her training sessions. Her meals were often contaminated with compounds toxic to human physiology. 3 weeks into training, during an advanced combat exercise, Instructor Thakamar decided to personally test the Deathworlder's limits. "You've been holding back," he accused, circling Maya on the training mat like a predator. "Show me this famous human aggression." "I'm following Academy protocols, sir," Maya replied evenly, though her heart rate was climbing. Thakamar's bulk cast a shadow over her, his scarred hide gleaming under the harsh lights. "Protocols," Sakmar's laugh was like grinding metal. "Your people didn't follow protocols when they burned Zarian Prime." His red eyes glowed with hatred. The instructor lunged forward with surprising speed, his massive fist aimed at Maya's head. She barely managed to deflect the blow, but the force sent her stumbling. This wasn't a training exercise, this was a real fight. Thakmer pressed his advantage, raining down blows that Maya could only partially block. The watching cadets cheered, caught up in the violence. Maya struggled to her feet, her left arm hanging uselessly at her side. The next exchange happened in slow motion. Thakmar feinted left, then drove his right fist straight at Maya's face with bone-crushing force. The massive fist connected with her nose with a wet crunch. Pain exploded through Maya's skull as cartilage shattered and blood poured down her face. She staggered backward, vision blurring. The watching cadets gasped, some in horror, others in vicious satisfaction. "This is what happens when Deathworlders forget their place," the instructor growled, turning toward the watching cadets as if the fight was over. But he had made a critical error. He had turned his back on an injured human. Maya's vision cleared, and with it came a cold, calculating fury. The pain faded as every instinct honed by evolution on humanity's Deathworld surged to the surface. She moved with fluid precision, her feet silent on the training mat. Thakmar never sensed Maya approaching until her uninjured arm locked around his massive neck in a perfect rear-naked choke, her legs wrapping around his torso. The instructor's eyes widened in shock as Maya applied pressure with surgical precision. 30 seconds, Maya whispered in his ear, her voice cold as deep space. That's how long you have before you pass out. Thakmar thrashed wildly, but Maya held on with tenacity, using his own weight against him. With a wet snap that echoed through the suddenly silent training room, Maya hyperextended Thakmar's right arm at the elbow. The joint bent at an unnatural angle, and the instructor's roar mixed with the sound of splintering bone. The massive Kragian crashed to his knees, his dominant arm hanging useless. Maya released her hold and stepped back, her face a mask of blood and determination. "You broke my nose," she said quietly. "So I broke your arm." The training room erupted in chaos as medics rushed in. But Maya stood perfectly still, her brown eyes scanning the alien faces around her. The fear she saw there was different now, dismissive fear, but respectful terror of something deadly. Commandant Veltar arrived within minutes, his 4 yellow eyes taking in the scene with calculating intelligence. "Explain," he ordered, his 6 arms folded across his obsidian chest. Maya straightened despite her injuries, meeting the commandant's gaze. Instructor Thakmar exceeded training parameters and deliberately attempted to cause serious injury. "I defended myself using appropriate force." Video recordings from the training session supported Maya's account, showing clearly that Thakmar had abandoned protocols and attacked with intent to harm. "The instructor will recover," Veltar said, after reviewing the evidence. "Though his combat effectiveness will be permanently reduced," his yellow eyes studied Maya with new interest. "Your medical records indicate this was not your first serious combat injury. Growing up on Earth requires certain survival skills, sir." She didn't elaborate on the gang wars in the outer colonies or the mining accidents or the dozen different ways their Deathworld tried to kill them daily. "Indeed." The commandant's voice held a note of respect that hadn't been there before. "Report to medical for treatment, then to my office at 0800 tomorrow. We need to discuss your training curriculum." Maya walked toward the medical bay. She felt the eyes of every cadet following her. The whispers had changed, evolved from dismissive mockery to something approaching awe. Word of the incident spread through the academy like wildfire. By the next morning, every cadet knew that the quiet human girl had crippled one of their most feared instructors in under 30 seconds. The casual harassment stopped immediately. Her performance in training exercises improved dramatically as instructors stopped undermining her efforts and began pushing her to excel. They had seen what happened when a human felt genuinely threatened, and none wanted to repeat Thakmar's mistake. The commandant's new training regimen was brutal, designed specifically to challenge human adaptability and endurance. Maya threw herself into it with single-minded determination, her brother's memory driving her to excel. 3 months later, Maya stood at attention in the academy's main parade ground, her dress uniform crisp and her posture perfect. The broken nose had healed with only a slight bump to show where Thakmar's fist had connected. Commandant Veltar approached with measured steps. "Cadet Rodriguez," he said, his voice carrying across the assembled crowd. "You've distinguished yourself through exceptional performance in all training categories." Maya remained at attention, though her heart was racing. Around the parade ground, hundreds of alien cadets watched in silence, their expressions now holding grudging respect rather than contempt. Furthermore, the commandant continued, "You have demonstrated the qualities that make humanity such valuable allies: adaptability, resilience, and the wisdom to show restraint even when provoked." He paused. "It is my honor to award you the distinction of first in class." The parade ground erupted in applause. Maya accepted the ceremonial blade that marked her achievement. Its alien metal cooled against her palm. As the ceremony concluded, Maya found herself surrounded by well-wishers from a dozen different species. But her attention was drawn to a figure standing at the edge of the crowd: Instructor Thakmar, his right arm in a complex brace. Their eyes met across the distance, and Maya saw something she hadn't expected in the Krogian's red gaze: respect. He nodded once, a gesture of acknowledgement between warriors, before turning and walking away. Later that evening, as Maya packed her belongings for assignment to her first posting, Kira sat on the edge of her bunk watching. "I'm going to miss you," the Centaurian said softly. "You taught me that strength isn't just about size or natural weapons." Maya folded her dress uniform carefully. "You taught me something too," she replied. "That not all aliens fear humans. Some of you are wise enough to see past the prejudice." "Where will they send you?" Kira asked. "Wherever humanity needs defending," Maya said simply. "And wherever someone needs to learn that Deathworlders can be protectors too." As Maya walked through the Academy's corridors one last time, she passed groups of new cadets arriving. She saw humans among them, scared, determined young people who reminded her of herself a year ago. One human cadet, barely 16 and trying to look brave despite his obvious terror, caught her eye. She stopped and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Remember," she said quietly, "they fear us because they don't understand us. Show them who we really are." The transport shuttle waited on the landing pad. Maya climbed aboard and found a seat by the window, watching as the Academy grew smaller below. As the shuttle broke atmosphere and the stars appeared, Maya allowed herself a small smile. She had proven that humans belonged among the galaxy's defenders, had shown that Deathworlders could be more than just weapons. The transport turned toward the jump point where Maya's new assignment waited, a frontier world where human tenacity would be tested against threats the galaxy had never seen. Behind her, in the Academy's medical bay, Instructor Thakmer flexed his partially healed arm and winced. When his aide suggested filing charges against the human cadet, the scarred Kragian shook his massive head. "No," he rumbled. "She taught me something important, that they never assume a Deathworlder is beaten until they stop breathing. It's a lesson worth remembering." Looked toward the stars where Maya's transport had disappeared. "The galaxy is safer with humans like her standing guard." The Academy continued its mission, but something had changed. Human cadets were no longer automatically dismissed or harassed. They were respected, feared, and sought after as allies. "Awaya." Rodriguez had become a legend whispered in the corridors. The human who broke an instructor's arm 30 seconds after he broke her nose. But more importantly, she had proven that Earth's children belonged among the stars, defending not just humanity but all sentient life. Years later, when alien species spoke of humans, they no longer used terms like savage or unpredictable. Instead, they spoke of honor, of unbreakable will. Will grit while by sure I'll Silliman where I go wider. I give away the way where our word I'm with the one where I great. And in the furthest reaches of space, on worlds where darkness gathered and hope seemed lost, human defenders stood ready with weapons in their hands and fire in their hearts, proving every day that some things were worth fighting for. The legend of the girl who wouldn't stay down had become something greater. Proof that humanity's place in the galaxy was not as monsters to be feared, but as guardians to be trusted. And Maya Rodriguez, wherever her duties took her, carried that legacy forward with quiet pride and unshakable determination, or unpredictable. Instead, they spoke of honor, of unbreakable will, of the terrible, swift justice that came to those who threatened the innocent. They spoke of Deathworlders, who chose to be protectors. And in the furthest reaches of space, on worlds where darkness gathered and hope seemed lost, human defenders stood ready with weapons in their hands and fire in their hearts, proving every day that some things were worth fighting for. The legend of the girl who wouldn't stay down had become something greater. Proof that humanity's place in the galaxy was not as monsters to be feared, but as guardians to be trusted. And Maya Rodriguez, wherever her duties took her, carried that legacy forward with quiet pride and unshakable determination. The stars watched and remembered, and waited to see what humanity would accomplish next.